Hi everybody, my name is Rustagi and I am the co-founder of a startup called Neuphony in Germany. We are developing a wearable neurofeedback device which tracks brain activity using EEG sensors and helps validate mental health on a day-to-day basis. It also helps people achieve their desired state. It can be sleep, it can be relaxation, it can be focus, and also get rid of anxiety and stress. As a part of our startup, every week on Sunday, we have an expert in this domain to come and chat on our platform. And today we have Dr. Teralyn Sell from US, Wisconsin, I
Yes,
think.
I'm from Wisconsin. Yes, I am.
Yes, she is a PhD, MS, NCC licensed professional counselor, mental health advocate, and a brain health expert. So, welcome, Dr. Teralyn, on our platform.
Hello. There's a part of me that wants to talk about what you're doing.
Yes, we can definitely take it after the Facebook Live, but this one
Yeah,
hour is dedicated to you.
right.
Yes. So you are an expert on taking care of anxiety and depression without medication or without talk therapy. And this is so amazing because it's very rare. Though people talk about holistic healing, but we also talk about medication and food and therapy and so many different aspects. And you have a very interesting method called as the brain love method, and I really want to get some insights into it.
In order to feel better, you have to love your brain, right? So that's why I
Yes.
called it brain love. And, so many people start with different areas of the body first. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I get it. And eventually we'll get there. But without your brain,
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't have to worry about those other areas of your body functioning
Yes.
correctly. Your brain, your spinal cord, and
Mm-hmm.
all those necessary places that
Mm-hmm.
create a sense of calm and overall well-being. Without doing that, you won't have to worry about your lungs, your heart, your stomach, all these things, because if I do believe in gut health and I believe in
Mm-hmm.
all those things.
Yes.
But in order to get there, we do have to
Mm-hmm.
dial down your nervous system and create good brain health,
This is
So
so true. And this is actually what I keep on saying to everybody, though every aspect of the body is important, but
mhm.
brain controls the central nervous system
Yes.
for a reason. And we have to always start at ground zero. Whereas we do
Yes.
the other way around. We start
We
from the
always go
outside.
the other way around. Like we always target like, oh, forget the brain. We're going to target other areas. And I'm like,
Yes.
we can't forget the brain. We have to
Yes.
love the brain,
Yes. And it's
and
like,
fuel it and give it what it needs.
mhm.
And yeah, so that's why I
Exactly
start with the
that,
brain.
because we are always talking about mental health, but we don't want to talk about brain because that's another aspect, but that's not another aspect. Thank you
Yes.
so much for talking about this. Can you give us some insights into your brain love method?
Sure. Really taking a look at the neurochemistry issues that
Mm-hmm.
you see in mental health and in addiction recovery too.
Mm-hmm.
So you said anxiety, depression. This is the gamut: anxiety, depression, ADHD,
Mm-hmm.
PTSD. These and addiction. The
Mm-hmm.
neurochemistry is really imbalanced. By the
Mm-hmm.
time you get to a place
Mm-hmm.
where you're so, I don't know, shaking, moving, like you just can't show
Mm-hmm.
up to your life, you're looking at a pretty serious neurochemical imbalance and potentially, more often than not,
Mm-hmm.
a cortisol problem, your stress
Mm-hmm.
hormone problem too, because you've been in this chronic state of fight for your life for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always interesting to me because when I start talking about cortisol, people are like, "Oh, I've been stressed out for so long. My cortisol must be through the roof." And I'm like, on the contrary, you're in the state of like clenching and whatever because you don't have enough
Mm-hmm.
cortisol to
Mm-hmm.
keep you in a state of what homeostasis, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what happens with our neurochemistry and cortisol? We are one whole being, right? So if
Yes.
one system is off, another system will probably kick in and
Mm-hmm.
try to pick up the slack,
Yeah.
which is really cool that our body does that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but also really crappy sometimes, because it will steal from places like your sex hormones, and then you're fatigued and, having low libido and weight gain and all these things. So there goes my dog. Sorry, my dog just,
No problem.
anyone see, there's my dog right there. Yeah. He's like, he doesn't care. Anyway, so your body will steal from other places, which will then hijack your system even more, because your body constantly wants to be in homeostasis.
Yes.
So it's going to do whatever it feels necessary to get there, and what I want people to know is this: I'm not anti-medication. I'm definitely not anti-talk therapy. When you can balance your neurochemistry, like serotonin, dopamine, adrenaline, GABA, all those big words, when you can balance your neurochemistry, you're going to show up to therapy better. Therapy will come easier, your life will come easier, and then you can tackle the bigger things. When clients of mine show up to therapy, I do start talking about brain health right away. Nutrition, and we're not talking about weight loss. In the US, like, we are such a heavy weight loss culture, it's ridiculous. I'm sure there are other countries like this too, but yeah. And so I'm not talking about weight loss, I'm talking about fueling your brain. I start talking about that right away, because if we can dial your nervous system down, then you're going to be able to talk through the trauma that you've had, or participate in EMDR or brain spotting, or whatever modality it is that you're there for. But if all I'm doing is trying to help you dial your nervous system down, we're not going to get too far. It's going to take a lot longer. Same thing with medication. I mean, do you want the truth? What I believe on medication? Like, I think we are, the US is well over medicated. You show up to the doctor's office and you're going to leave with a prescription. That's just the way that it goes, but that's what they have in their toolkit. A physician prescribes, and that's what you should expect. Most people don't show up to a therapist first in the US anyway. They show up to a physician, right? So, but then they get kind of stuck on this medication year after year, because I call it like changing the architecture of your brain. Medications change the brain architecture, whereas neurotransmitters, amino acids and nutrition actually help them work, like help the functioning better, right? We're not changing the architecture, like, not to get too deep and sciencey, but medication actually changes how your neuron will talk to the other neuron. Whereas when you fuel the neurotransmitter deficiency or try to find balance, now we're just balancing. We're either shutting off the faucet if you're creating too much, I'm just going to use serotonin, or we're filling the bucket, so to speak. We're turning on or turning off the faucet. So we're not changing the architecture of anything. Which is why so many people have trouble when they come off of antidepressants, or, we talk about it like antidepressants are not addicting. Well, when you take something out of the brain that it's used to having, you go through a withdrawal process, you go through that. And most people that I talk to are like, I'm going to have to stay on this medication forever because I tried being off of it for 2 days and I was so sick. I was so dizzy. I'm like, well, right. Because you can't do it like that. You have to go slow, and you also have to provide that brain fuel that you need in order to do that. Hold on. I get it. Sure. My dog is licking himself. Linus, please go. Scoot. There you go. Sorry. It's allergy season for him.
No problem. I understand that. So as far as I understand, so there we have some mental health issues, and then because of that we have some chemical hormonal imbalances, and that kind of exaggerates the mental health situation.
Yeah.
And what your method kind of proposes is that we break this loop around and we stop it so that we can take care of the hormones, so that then you can take care of the other part via therapy or via medication if needed.
Or by neurofeedback, or whatever it is that you choose, or by yoga, or by meditation. There's a lot of different holistic things. I'm kind of a believer in using what works for you. Not all people even want therapy, and that is totally fine. But my whole thing is, there's more to the neurochemistry than just plugging in a medication, you
Yes.
know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's surprising, some of the resistance that I get on that,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, the resistance is
Mm-hmm.
because we've been conditioned through commercials and things like that in the
Yes.
US to
Yes.
believe that the only way you're going to feel better is
Yes.
if we prescribe medication. And I'm like,
Yes.
so that means that all of our brains are so jacked
Yeah.
that there's no way that we can get
Mm-hmm.
out of this naturally.
And it's not only US, it's even it's I come from India, and
Mhm.
India is the place where people from all over the world travel for yoga and meditation and ayurveda. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, because of the marketing and every commercial activity which is going on, I was there 5 years back, and I didn't believe in yoga and meditation that much because of the commercialization. When you come to the West, you realize there
Yes.
are some people who are just crazy about it, and then you start reading and studying that it's actually helpful.
Yes. Yeah, that's funny. That's
Yeah.
that's funny that, yeah, I mean, we travel there for that. Like,
Yes.
you guys know what you're doing.
But the youth, exactly as you said, the marketing, the commercialization is just taking it over. The people think that we are doing wrong, and that is the standard path of going.
Yes. And it's funny because when I'm on Facebook or social media and I'm
Mhm.
talking about this, I have a fair share of people that's like, "No, you
Yeah.
only need medication." And
Yes.
I'm like, "Okay, maybe that's what you need, but
Yeah.
it's not what everybody needs." I
Yes.
mean, I was prescribed medication after my son was born.
Mm-hmm.
I was put on an antidepressant for postpartum
Mm-hmm.
depression, and that lasted for 5 years, because this was almost 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't figure out how to get off of it because I felt
Mm-hmm.
so sick.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first introduction to, longer term use of
Mm-hmm.
medication.
Mm-hmm.
And so years after that, I was in a really bad work situation before I went into full-time private practice. Actually, that was a situation that propelled me into it, which was
Yeah.
fantastic. But I showed up at the doctor's office again because I had such severe anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
and walked out with a prescription. And I thought, I knew this was going to happen. I knew this. I knew what was going to happen. I took it for 2 days and I felt worse.
Mm-hmm.
And then I looked at my husband and I said, okay, I can either like medicate myself through my life, or I can make
Mm-hmm.
some massive changes. And the next day I gave my notice, and it was like this anxiety just went away. Like I felt like
Wow.
I had hope again,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when I really started studying brain health and nutrition, because
Mm-hmm.
I got so many women just like me, men too, don't
Yes.
think this is only women, that would come in to the
Mm-hmm.
office sicker and sicker. And
Mm-hmm.
my response to that, unfortunately, was, well, go back to your doctor and see if you can, change the dose, get something
Mm-hmm.
different, blah, blah, blah. Because I
Yeah.
felt so stuck in helping them at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember sitting in front of the computer, Google searching
Mm-hmm.
natural ways to help somebody with their neurochemistry, you
Yeah.
know? And all of a sudden, these research articles started popping up. Real
Mm-hmm.
research I'm talking
Yes,
about,
yes,
not,
yes, I know.
yeah, not like somebody's blog, like real
Yeah.
research from the government, by the way.
Yes.
Anyway, yes, real research. And I was like, oh my God, like I need to be part of this. Like
Mm-hmm.
I need to get into this movement and
Mm-hmm.
ASAP.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I would sheepishly, somebody would come in and I would learn a little and I'd be like, hey, have you ever tried like L-theanine? Like as an amino, have you ever tried that? They're like, no, what's that? And I'm like, well, it's an amino acid that actually, balances neurochemistry. Do you
Mm-hmm.
want to try it?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. They'd go out and they'd buy it and they'd come back and they'd be like, that really helped smooth me out. I'd be like, really? It did? Like,
Okay.
yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is
Wow,
like
it's
baby,
helping.
yeah, this is like baby brain health me going, let's see if they'll try it. But I felt scared because it went against, common psychology
Some
practices,
standards,
and
yeah.
yeah, against status quo, and against
Mm-hmm.
the idea that meds are the only thing. And it's interesting because I even found like a lot of the regular medical medications are causing mental health symptoms, you
Yeah.
know? like cholesterol medications and
Mm-hmm.
blood pressure medications. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, holy crap. Well, that's because we just take a pill and we're still not fueling anything, you
Yes.
know? Or I feel like I'm going on and on. Is that okay?
No, no, yes, yes,
Oh,
definitely,
okay,
that's
okay.
okay.
All right. Just checking, making sure everyone's following. Like ADHD in the United
Mhm.
States is like a huge
Mhm.
diagnosis right now for kids,
Yeah.
and the prescription of stimulants
Mm-hmm.
is crazy. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's to me, it's beyond acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
When you have, I'm in these forums on Facebook for, moms with
Yeah.
ADHD kids and all this stuff,
Yeah.
and they're typing in there, how early is too early to put your kid on medication? My child
Yes.
is 3. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, what? Why? Again, why would you change the architecture of your child's developing brain
Mm-hmm.
instead of looking at anything and everything else that you could possibly do in a consistent manner? And
Mm-hmm.
that's the problem, is that a lot of parents want such a quick fix because they're at their wits end, and I
Mm-hmm.
and I get that. So I say, well, did you try this? Yes, we tried that. How long did you try that? A week. I'm like,
Wow.
well, you need to try that for a much longer than a
Mm-hmm.
week or a couple of days in order to
Mm-hmm.
see benefits. And I'm like, this whole ADHD thing here, like, I don't know what it's going to cause on the
Mm-hmm.
outside. I don't know what it's going to do.
Yeah.
But I do know that long-term use of medication often creates more emotional distress and symptomology of mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Not even mental health, even physical health, because
physical health, yeah.
because all these medications, if not given in the right balance, the right proportion and right combination, these actually harm you, and then as you said, becomes a dependency. And it would have been so much easier if it was a more holistic approach, or even if needed a combination of these two, just not
Yes.
dependent on
Right.
drugs.
To keep the dosage low,
Yes.
and instead of like, because what happens is your body becomes used to it, but they say used to it.
Yeah.
I think what happens, because I've read research on long-term use of like SSRIs,
Hmm.
depletes serotonin.
Yeah.
So I think what's happening is serotonin is getting depleted. It's not that your body's getting used to that dose and you need
Hmm.
more. It's the depletion of the
Sure.
neurotransmitter causing
Wow.
you to add on something else, or,
Hmm.
another medication,
Hmm.
instead of keeping the dosage low
Hmm.
and the brain food high,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
fill the empty bucket. Go ahead and take the medication. If you're to that place where it's dangerous for you or
Hmm.
whatever, go ahead and take the medication if you feel that bad. But take this much, fuel your brain that much, or
Exactly.
that much.
Yes. The
Focus
other way
on,
around.
yes, focus on the other way around, instead of, I'm going to take this much medication
Mhm.
and I'm going to, I don't know, maybe eat some
Try
protein
something
sometime.
healthy.
Yeah, exactly. I'll have an apple once a week or something. I don't know. You know,
Okay. So now to get insights into these brain chemicals, because everybody has heard serotonin, dopamine,
Mhm.
melatonin. We have started using them, but we are
The
not sure if we
terminology.
are exactly we are right. So can you just like very easily explain how what these neurotransmitters and these brain hormones are and how they work?
So, yes, I'm okay. So, it's hard for me to explain it like
I
this, but anyway,
know.
yeah, it's tough. But if you think of those neurotransmitters, they're called serotonin, dopamine.
Mhm.
They're kind of like the big boys in charge of mood. We'll just
Okay.
say that they're in charge of
Yes.
other things too, but mood is the biggest one that we're talking about.
Mhm.
Mood and addictions, really,
Mhm.
and then stress as
Mhm.
well, and the management of stress.
Mhm.
But here's the thing: this is what I want people to know about it. Food is at the top of the neurotransmitter pathway.
Okay.
So, protein sources in
Mhm.
particular are at the top of the neurotransmitter pathway. So, to make serotonin, you need food that has tryptophan.
Mhm.
Tryptophan is an amino acid, right? So
Yeah.
you can help yourself in two ways with protein. Number one, you're starting the pathway.
Mhm.
Pretty much any pathway has some
Mhm.
protein related food in it.
Mhm.
And then the second thing is that protein helps you balance your blood sugar,
Mhm.
which is very important in
Mhm.
mood.
Okay.
Okay, so if there's only one thing that the listeners take away from this, it's
Mhm.
this: improve your protein intake. Like have protein every 3 hours if that's the only thing you can do. And I'm not talking about eating a steak every 3 hours, I'm talking about like, even if you can't do anything else, like eat or drink a ready-made protein shake, would be good enough, especially if you're not even eating all day long, I find that a lot of people in the mental health industry, the clients, and in recovery are literally starving their bodies all day long, So if that's all you do is sip on a protein shake every couple of hours, that would be a good enough start, So here's the other way that your neurochemistry is made. So those pathways rely on protein, and they also rely on what's called nutrient cofactors, which are vitamin C, vitamin D, iron, magnesium, your B vitamins. Like it relies on all of these things to hum along. It's kind of like a car doesn't just rely on gas, it also relies on oil and other fluids, right? So it's the same type of thing, which is why eating well is important. Because all of these nutrient cofactors are there for a reason. It's not just rhetoric we hear for weight loss, it's actual brain health. Eating good foods improves your brain health, period. Which, by the way, if weight loss is your goal, will allow you to show up to a weight loss plan easier, I don't know.
Yes, and I've actually started seeing that a lot of physical fitness consultants, or let's say athletes, are kind of talking about these things, but not to the correct path. So I know a friend of mine, she's a fitness trainer. So she always talks about how food connects to these brain hormones, and then they connect to your determination to get physically fit. Physical fitness is visible, so a lot of people tend to go that way, but they don't see that how the food is helping their brain, because does that even happen? That's the question which common people ask.
Right. I mean, okay, so you improve your dopamine pathway with food or amino acid therapy or something like that. That's your reward pathway. That's your giddy up, your drive. Let's do that again. You're going to show up to your physical fitness easier because your drive is being built again. It's really hard.
Yes. Again, thank you for explaining this amazing comment. We have love from audience also on this for you. One more question. What can you just explain why we need more of neurotransmitters in our body?
To find homeostasis.
Yes.
To find balance. I mean, and neurotransmitters run throughout your entire body. It's not just in your brain. They help your entire being find balance. Balance, homeostasis, that we want flow, right? Our bodies want to be in a state of flow. So when you find balance with your neurochemistry, you'll find that easier.
Okay. And how is science progressing in this to get these checked? So is there a way where we can get our neurochemical tests done?
There is, and science is progressing with this. I've said this before, like psychology is the only profession that hasn't looked legitimately under the hood. You would never go to the ER with a broken arm and get a checklist to find out if your arm is broken. That's what we do in psychology, but there are some functional labs out there and really high quality lab facilities that are doing neurochemical labs, which is pretty cool. And I only see it getting bigger.
Yes. And this is a part of your brain love method, right?
It is. Yes, it is. Perfect. That's the first part.
Exactly. And what are the next parts so that our audience knows and they can reach out to you?
The first part is understanding what's going on. The second part is creating a plan that works for you. The third part is education, and then you understanding your entire body, so that when the program is over, you know what to do.
Exactly. You know your body, and you can create a custom diet plan because so one question off the grid, of the charts. So,
all right.
How effective do you think these standard diets are for everybody? So there are these 5 to 10 different types of diets I was studying in the past 1 week for this interview. There is one diet which Adele was following. I'm not sure what the name was. So she was eating wine and dark chocolates, and then there is keto, and then there are so many different kinds of diets. Do you think these are beneficial for everyone? everyone, like one size fits all?
No. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the only size that would fit most would
Mm-hmm.
be, I just say whole foods and healthy fats. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's the size that fits most.
Mm-hmm.
I try really hard not to go down the, um, specialized diets for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain things like, whole foods are less inflammatory than processed foods, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, in general, that type of thing. Again, most people are looking at those diet plans for weight loss, not for
Yeah.
brain health. So
Mm-hmm.
I try to keep it simple. I do
Mm-hmm.
look at everything in this category: good, better, best,
Mm-hmm.
and then good enough.
Mm-hmm.
So when people are struggling with mental health issues,
Mm-hmm.
getting them to do the best case scenario,
Mm-hmm.
they'll drop out.
Okay.
So getting to a place where it's good enough always is where
Mm-hmm.
I begin.
Okay.
um, because mental health is a very different beast, you know?
Yes. Is it
So
possible that a diet is helping me lose weight, but is deteriorating my mental health? Is it possible because
yeah,
the food I'm eating? Is it possible?
sure. Because,
Okay.
especially like if you're just looking at calories in a
Mm-hmm.
diet,
Mm-hmm.
like a Snickers bar is X amount of calories,
Okay.
but it doesn't do anything to you or for you. It
Mm-hmm.
just knocks off the calories that you're allotted for the day. So
Mm-hmm.
or low calorie diets, things like that, like you're stressing your brain out and your body out even more, which
Mm-hmm.
can impair mental health issues or
Wow.
exacerbate them even more. So you
Okay.
do have to be careful. It is about fueling and plumping up your brain.
Mm-hmm.
Start there
That
first, but
this
everyone
is
wants to start with weight loss, unfortunately.
Yeah, this is amazing information. So I always also say the same. Like for me, physical health is important, but if I
Mhm.
am happy here, literally
Mhm.
the physical health is okay. I first
Yeah,
have to be happy with myself, and that is the key aspect everybody should follow.
I agree 100%. And try to get a grip on your stress level. That's the other
Yes.
big piece. But if you have a grip on that, happiness is a lot easier.
Yes. Yes.
So
So, my next question here would be, can you share a few examples or or some stories, because this is a very new topic. So for people to understand, maybe you can share a story of a person with stress, depression, anything
mhm.
on the top of your mind.
That did the program, you mean?
Yes.
Or just
With the
something? So
program.
all right, so I'll use myself
Oh
as
wow.
the
Okay.
example.
Perfect
Yeah,
example.
because of course, when I
Yes.
started doing this, I did it for me first.
Mm-hmm.
Legitimately, I did the whole thing. And my labs came back crazy, but look, depleted neurotransmitters, and my
Mm-hmm.
cortisol was super low. So
Mm-hmm.
I had trouble, like I had this fatigue that was insane.
Mm-hmm.
Like 2 o'clock and beyond, I was
Mm-hmm.
done, 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 done. Then
Mm-hmm.
the weekends would come and I would just want to nap them away.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to sleep. And my husband kept saying, like, why do you want to sleep all the time? It's a beautiful day. And I'm like, I know, I yearn to be out there, but my eyeballs are saying close and go to
Mm-hmm.
sleep. So I was in an adrenal fatigue phase that was quite intense.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had no motivation beyond showing up for clients, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that was all I could do. But I had 3 kids at home. I had a life. I had all this stuff
Yeah.
going on. And so anyway, so I looked at my neurochemistry and I
Mm-hmm.
straightened it out using
Mm-hmm.
amino acids and nutrition. And
Mm-hmm.
it took about, I would say, well, I mean, you can feel better within a couple of weeks, but it's just not a consistent
Mm-hmm.
thing, like without taking the supplements.
Mm-hmm.
At the 6 month mark,
Mm-hmm.
legitimately, it's 6 month mark, there was a week that I remember. And this sounds so weird. I actually ran errands after work,
Mm-hmm.
and like twice during that week.
Wow.
And I look back on that and I'm like, that seems so ridiculous to say that that was a big win, because
Mm-hmm.
doesn't everybody run errands after work?
Mm-hmm.
Well, not when they're so fatigued.
Yeah.
In the morning you got to go pick up milk or something.
Yeah.
But by 5 o'clock or whatever, you're like, no way am I going to go in. I'm just going to go home and we're all going to fend for ourselves. It doesn't matter. I don't even have that much gas in
And
my tank,
yeah.
you know? So at the 6 month mark, I actually ran errands twice in that week. And the
Mm-hmm.
weekend came and I was like, I ran errands this week.
Wow.
Like that, was profound,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so it was at that point that I was like, this is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And if I feel like this, there has to be tons of other women in particular that feel the same way.
My
So
God.
that's my success story. And now, I mean, that was like 7 years ago when I did that for
Mm-hmm.
myself.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know when it starts, like that fatigue starts creeping in, because it
Mm-hmm.
does sometimes, because I am not perfect, far from it, but I know exactly what to do. Oh yeah, so I got to focus on my adrenals a little bit more, make sure my blood sugar is stable, and I'm good to go.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes it a lot easier when you've been through it the first time. The
Yeah.
biggest thing that I get with anyone that I work with is complete validation.
Mm-hmm.
When they get these results back, it's like I've had people bawl, like
Mm-hmm.
cry,
Mm-hmm.
because they're like, finally, there's a reason why I feel like I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with that fatigue, so many
Mm-hmm.
people struggle with it. Um, when they're like, now I know why I've got fatigue. I can't wait to show, my partner that it's not just,
Yeah.
it's not just me being lazy or not wanting to do it. Like there's a legitimate
Yeah.
chemical thing happening, hormonal thing
Yes.
happening that's causing me to feel like this. So
Yes.
yeah, I do have some testimonials on
Mm-hmm.
video format on my website
Yes.
too, if anyone wants to watch those.
Yes, I have to say here, this was such an amazing story because I got to learn two things, and I think even the audience does. That firstly, when you have a mental health problem, basic things like running errands also become like big task. You don't.
Oh yeah.
This is a big fight we have to. People are dealing on day-to-day basis, and there are millions and billions of people all across the world dealing with this. And the
Hmm.
second is that it takes a little bit of time it took,
Hmm.
but then there wasn't a going back. It was 6 months, and it was now you had the tools to take care of that,
Go
and there is
forward.
that validation from your family and friends that you're not crazy, or this
Yep.
is not your behavior, or this is not you being lazy, but
Yep.
something is internally changing. I don't have a word for it, but something is
Right.
happening to me.
Yes. Yes. I
This
mean,
is
and those are huge validation points.
Yes, this is such an
Yes.
amazing story, Dr. Teralyn, for sharing with us. I have
Hmm.
one question. A lot of
Yep.
people always ask me, can depression be treated? Can stress be treated? Because this is a lifetime thing. That's what people say. What is your take on
That's
it?
what people think. I
Yes.
mean, and I think in some cases,
Mm-hmm.
it might be a lifetime thing. It
Yes.
depends. I mean, people have had so many different things happen in their life,
Mm-hmm.
but in
Yes.
in the standard majority of people,
Mm-hmm.
listen up, everybody, turn your volume up. Yeah, you can feel
Yes.
better and not have it
Yes.
anymore. And,
Yes.
that goes against common thinking. Once
Mm-hmm.
you have anxiety or depression, you always have anxiety and depression. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
why is this one of the only like health related concerns that never can get better? You
Yeah.
know, that never can get better. I'm like, people drop off like type 2 diabetes diagnoses, like they drop off high cholesterol, like
Exactly.
you can fit, but all of a sudden you have mental health issues, and it's forever. It can't ever just be right now,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm here to say it can be right now.
Mm-hmm.
We can make some big improvements, if not remit
Mm-hmm.
symptoms altogether.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to say that. you know to me it gives hope. I mean, there's one thing, like, and in the US particularly,
Mm-hmm.
like, we're working on the
Stigmatizing.
stigmatizing,
Yeah.
yeah, my goodness, it's Sunday, whatever, of mental
Yeah.
health, which is great
Mm-hmm.
because we're talking about it more and
Yes.
more. But in doing that,
Mm-hmm.
there's a level of hopelessness that is
Mm-hmm.
also created,
Yes.
because it's like, well, just get support and talk through it, and you're going to have to manage this your entire life and all this. And I'm like, why in the heck did we get to that point?
Yes.
That
Yeah.
it's a lifetime sentence.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, are genetics involved? They certainly can be.
Mm-hmm.
But now what we're even learning about our genetic code is that we can mute the code,
Yeah.
and we can express better code. Like, we can do that
Mm-hmm.
through natural holistic ways,
Mm-hmm.
So nobody ever says because you have the genetic code for breast cancer that you are
Mm-hmm.
for certain going to get breast cancer.
Yeah.
No, nobody says that either. But
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, mental health and even addiction recovery is
Mm-hmm.
a sentence for
Yes.
eternity.
And
And
this is so weird for me because it's like a person like me. Let's assume my story. I have anxiety and I have stress and I deal with it. I deal with it for 5 years, but it's possible that it can come back because after 5 years, something bigger comes in my life which
sure,
causes me to get anxiety. So that doesn't
yeah,
mean that this anxiety was never healed for the 5 years, but
exactly.
it's like fever. It's like infections. They can get healed, but they can come back. It's not a standardized that this person has anxiety and he has it forever.
Right, exactly. And I wish we could change that rhetoric around mental
Yeah, I
health.
know.
It's
Mm-hmm.
really difficult because, people kind of get on you when you start talking about those alternative
Yes.
ideas around mental health.
Yes.
And I don't know, but I think all that rhetoric
Mm-hmm.
feels very hopeless.
Yeah.
It feels very hopeless.
Yes.
When things can be corrected, they can be corrected. So why don't we correct them and see where it brings you,
Actually,
you
this
know?
was one of the motivations for us starting these lives because we were sure that even if 20 people are watching us on a weekly basis, we
Yeah.
can change 20 lives. We can change the
Yeah.
way people think. And generally, people talk about mental health only when something big has happened, especially like
Right.
lockdown and corona and
Oh yeah.
quarantine. Everybody wants to talk about, but nobody wants to, get into
Do
the
anything
action
about it.
mode.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly.
Like, let's just talk about how hard it is. Well,
Yes.
okay, it's really hard. But how are you moving in directions to make it less difficult or less stressful on your
Mm-hmm.
body, you know?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like I said, if I could change the stigma around that, it's
Yes.
that it can't ever be fixed.
Yes.
And medication is one of the only ways to help it.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to go too.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's got
Yeah.
to go. But I don't have marketing like big pharma does.
Yes.
You know?
I can agree upon that because
Yeah,
we are also a startup, and to convince people that we are not measuring hocus pocus things from your
right.
brain and it's
Yes.
actually there, it's like,
Yes.
it takes some time.
Yeah. Neurofeedback is huge. There's tons of research around it. So,
Yes. But you'll
but
still be surprised to see a lot of people not only about neurofeedback. So what we do is we use meditation, mindfulness, music therapy, and breathing techniques to help people come out
yeah.
of that brain state. And people are like, no, my meditation is just psychological. It's not real. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, I don't know what to say
Like
to
it
you now.
impacts everything. How about like, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at your nervous system, like especially that vagus nerve, like
Mhm.
it touches every organ that you have.
Yes. They,
So if you can do something to mitigate that and to calm it down,
yeah.
my goodness, it is a game changer. The
People
game
have become
changer.
a lot of very adamant about the things, how things are being portrayed on the television, and
Oh
they
yes.
believe that that is real, and
Mhm.
a very less effort is being put by them to really understand. Let's search, let's see what it is. Like,
Let's try something different.
yeah.
It's so interesting because these commercials, and I don't know what they're like where you are, but the commercials here like list, 50 different negative side effects that could happen. But they list them like, oh, you could die and you could do, this and your gut could be terrible. And, all these things, they do it in such a loosey goosey,
With a
way
happy
that,
smile.
yeah, with smiles, and they're picking flowers and they're doing, all these things. And I'm like, nobody's paying attention to this. Like, if you tell me
Wow.
that I'm going to possibly have 50 different side effects to this thing,
Mm-hmm.
but it'll make me less moody,
Mm-hmm.
but the rest of my body's going to have a freak out attack.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that seems worth the risk to me. And the weirdest part is that people will have these side effects. Like,
Yes.
these side effects are real, you guys. They'll
Mm-hmm.
show back up to their doctor and tell them about a side effect, and the doctor will do this. Well, that's not really nah, that's so rare. And I'm like, is it though?
Mm-hmm.
Is it though? Like, I don't know. I could talk about this for a day and a half
Yes,
probably.
we should join our forces together and kind of do the marketing whole thing like.
Yes, let's do that. That would be phenomenal. I would love it. I would love
Yes,
it.
me too. So now in the last part of our section of our live sections, we generally ask people to share the reason why, like something which people can relate to and understand, feel connected, that how a common day, if a person is struggling through going to office or through a heartbreak, and can understand and feel relatable to this is basically happening. So maybe a story somewhere, something around, so that people can relate and understand that it's basically brain chemistry.
A story outside of myself or just in
Anything
general? Oh
is
my
okay.
goodness. So, all right. So I have my very best friend in the whole wide world.
Mm-hmm.
She has struggled with depression and anxiety for a very long time,
Mm-hmm.
and she kept taking medication for it. When she
Mm-hmm.
would get on the medication, she would actually become suicidal every
Oh my
time.
god.
Okay, every time. And I kept telling her, would you please listen to me for a minute? Like,
Mm-hmm.
could you please,
Yeah.
engage in this program,
Mm-hmm.
and let me help you figure it out?
Mm-hmm.
And she'd be like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it
Mm-hmm.
probably took 5 years,
Wow.
5 years. And she finally did it. She finally let me help her, and I put her
Mm-hmm.
through my program. She
Mm-hmm.
was one of the first ones. She actually cried when
Mm-hmm.
she got her results back.
Mm-hmm.
And she's actually the testimonial on my website
Oh wow.
because she struggled with particularly anxiety so badly
Mm-hmm.
that she was not performing in her work the way she wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And she would literally psych herself out driving to work every day,
Mm-hmm.
all these things. Her body was just like in an internal state of humming,
Mm-hmm.
all the
Yeah.
time.
Mm-hmm.
So we did the neurochemistry labs, and I
Mm-hmm.
actually put her through my program just like I would do anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she did the program now. She ended it maybe not even quite a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I asked her the other day, I'm like, how's that anxiety? And she goes, oh, I
Oh.
kind of forgot about it. And I was like,
That's
what?
so good.
Yeah, but she goes, but now I'm fatigued. She goes, now I feel like I have that fatigue coming back again. And then she goes, but I know what to do. I got to start taking that
Exactly.
adrenal stuff again. And I'm like, yeah, you do. So
Wow.
she's probably I don't want to say my biggest success because I've
Mm-hmm.
had many of them, but
Mm-hmm.
like the most heartfelt one.
Closest to your
Yes,
heart.
because I know that I helped her a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And some things prop up in her life that, still make her nervous or,
Okay.
edgy, but it's not the same as it
Mm-hmm.
was before. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a complete neurochemical thing. The biggest piece that I want people to know about that is medication
Mm-hmm.
always made her worse.
Wow.
Medication tipped the scales into
Mm-hmm.
this suicidal thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, like I knew I needed to help her
Mm-hmm.
because the medication was supposed to help, but it made her
Mm-hmm.
feel worse,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
it's like seeing the forest through the trees.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking medication, you think it's supposed to help you, you feel worse, so what do? Go back to the doctor, get something
Yeah.
different, add in, because it's supposed to help, but it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I see consistently is people on medication
Mm-hmm.
still feeling terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have to ask these questions like, you're on medication and you still feel terrible, but yet you stay on the medication.
Yeah. And this is such an amazing story, Dr. Teralyn, because firstly, the fact that you put your best friend into it, it means, if I'm doing something fake and I'm just doing it for the business and the money, I will
Right.
never put my family and friends at jeopardy.
Right.
So if the first step for seeking the truth is that you put your best friend through it, and the
Yeah.
second is, what an amazing result. It was so inspiring. And because a person whose medication were making her into suicidal, and just by, and that's kind of worse on every aspect: physical, mental, financial, your family, your
Yep.
relatives, everybody
Everything.
around. And
Everything.
here, all she had to do, and now she has the tools, because not, if
Yep.
it's just not that big, it's just being lazy, being lethargic, getting tired, she has the
Yep.
tools now. It's not a lifelong thing, she knows how to deal with it.
That's
Do you
right.
have A lot of love from Kathy, especially for you in the comment section. Her comment is, my questions about medications that I had from 2019 when I got certified health coach have been answered today in the live. Thank you a lot.
You're welcome.